Hello everyone, and welcome to a bonus episode of the Rene Plays Games podcast feed. It is a 5 Tuesday month here in September of 2025, which means that the 5th week is always just a bonus episode, and I decided to do a one-player one-shot of a game that I have had on my solo TTRPG 2 playlist for a very long time, and finally I'm going to play it. I recently got in the mail fulfilled my Song of the Scriptworm expansion for this game, but before I play that, I want to sit down and play the base game, The Librarian's Apprentice, by Daniel Bronson Lowe, a.k.a. Almost Bedtime Theater, who hopefully you remember from this podcast. I did an episode with Dan. We played in a tabletop tutorial episode, and we played, did you say Street Magic together? Where we built a small city and location within the infinite library that this game takes place in together. And, not to pat myself on the back, but it is very exciting and humbling, and just like it made me so very, very excited. That location that we made up in that episode of I'm Sorry, Did You Say Street Magic by Caro Assertion made it into Song of the Scriptworm as a location in the library that you can go to. So, if you are ever playing The Librarian's Apprentice and you are playing Song of the Scriptworm and you get to Bloomhold, I hope that you think of our silly little tabletop tutorial one-shot that we played together here on this channel. Now, that said, I didn't think about the fact that for my one-player one-shot bonus episode of this month, I decided to play a game where I am exploring in an infinite place, like an infinite library inside of a single location, which is kind of what I'm doing in my series right now in Colossal. But you know what? There's a theme, and I'm feeling it, so maybe my brain was just like, yes, you're in this headspace, keep doing this thing. I also just finished reading Piranesi by Susanna Clarke, which I recommend. It's not quite the same, but it's close enough, and I recommend reading that book. It's very good. This is one of those solo games that I've seen it all over the internet. You know, I was so stoked to talk to Dan about this game and have him on and just chat with him at all. But then getting it in physical, because I had it as a PDF, and then I added it on when I backed Song of the Scriptworm. The physical presentation of this game is so good, and I cannot recommend it enough. I think that if you are a solo TTRPG player, you need to get yourself The Librarian's Apprentice. It comes in such cool packaging. It comes in this little package that you unfold. It looks like bits of little accoutrements and just like paperwork of an actual library card. The character sheets are bookmarks with quotes about libraries on them. It looks like there are sign-out sheets and all this thing. It comes in these 3 little trifold pamphlets. The Song of the Scriptworm is wonderfully laid out with tons of little notes in the margins and information and stuff like that, that there's Easter eggs that if you follow them through as you read the book, there's all this fun stuff. So if you aren't catching my enthusiasm about this game, I recommend you check it out yourself. There will be links to it and all of Dan's links in the description of this podcast. Please go check it out. Support him. He's an amazing indie creator. And yeah, I can't say enough good things about Dan and this game. So let's talk about the game. I'm going to be playing this. Hopefully I get it done in a one-shot, or we'll play it for a little bit and you'll get the idea. Maybe, you know, depending on how it goes, maybe we have to come back, or maybe I will bring it to a satisfying conclusion. That's the whole point of these one-player one-shots. We're going to play a game, see what's up with it, kind of learn it together. I'm going to try and present this like, you know, we're doing it together. We're going to learn every little bit of the mechanics as we go along. And we're going to see what's what with this game. So let's do the basics about The Librarian's Apprentice. First off, it is based on another Rene's games, although he goes by Rene. You may know him as Fari RPGs on the internet. He put out a game called Firelights, and Rene Pierre, RP Deshays, is amazing at building community around indie TTRPGs. He regularly puts out a game and then puts out the SRD for that game and recommends people make games with those rules themselves to just get used to not only creating things, but also understanding how games are made and what makes them special. So Dan made The Librarian's Apprentice based off of Firelights, and there's a few other inspirations that you're going to be familiar with. There are truths in this game inspired by Ironsworn. There are rules for resources that are based off of Jason Cordova, a.k.a. the Gauntlet RPGs. I think he's the creator, or at least if not, like, you know, the forefront person of the Gauntlet and creator of Brindlewood Bay and things like that. They made a game way back in the day on their Discern Realities podcast called The Labyrinth for Dungeon World, and there are inspirations from that. There are influences from Pandion Games' Hints and Hijinks system, which I think is what the Substratum Protocol that I played, Substratum Protocol, I always say it wrong. I say everything about Pandion Games and Substratum. Anyway, the list of inspirations for this game is an indie RPG goldmine as well. It's just, again, I'm so excited to play this game. It's an amalgamation of my deep little rabbit hole of indie RPGs, and I'm very excited. So, yeah. Infinite, ever-shifting, and sometimes dangerous, the Great Library exists in the space between worlds and times. Among the many who call it home are the Librarians, and only those who truly understand it may join their ranks. You seek to do so. The path of a Librarian's Apprentice is a long one. Your current task is designed to test your skills at traversing the library and locating its documents. Find the information requested by your librarian before the day is out, and you will have completed one more step on your journey. Good luck. Alright, let's go ahead and talk about the mechanics before we make our character. In this game, it is a game that uses both a deck of cards and dice. We are going to slowly create the library by flipping cards and placing them in a ever-growing configuration, sort of like a grid, but it's going to move around and go different ways based on the results of our rolls. When we do any action, we draw 2 cards from the deck, and then we're going to roll 2d6 plus a modifier. And depending on if our result is greater than both of those, or in the middle, or below, then we're going to get certain outcomes of that action. Aces in this game are worth 1, face cards are worth 11, so the only way to beat those is with a 12+. If the score is higher than both cards, it's known as a light result. If it is higher than one of the 2 cards, it is a shadow. And if it's lower than both cards, or equal is considered not a success, then that is a darkness roll. So yeah, there's multiple types of actions. There is traveling, conducting research, and addressing complications. You can also ask a question, but that's more of like an oracle thing. Eventually, we will accrue resources as we overcome and take actions in these different rooms of the library, and they will get us resources which we can use to offset fatigue or give ourselves bonuses to rolls or different things. I think you also need resources in order to find the documents. So we're looking for, I think, 6 documents over the course of this session. And yeah, I've already shuffled my deck of cards. Let's go ahead and make our character. So the bookmark here has everything we need to fill out. The name I'm going to go with is Corbyn. He, him are his pronouns, and then we have a fatigue track where there's 4 boxes before we have to call it a day, and somewhere to track the resources we will gain. The 3 skills of this game are navigation, research, and lore. Navigation is obviously used for traveling throughout the library, finding my way around to the rooms that I need to get to find the documents. Research is looking for something useful or figuring out what's going on. Finding resources, right? Getting the information we need. And then addressing complications within the library will call on our lore. So we're going to give Corbyn +1 to navigation. We're going to give +2 to research because I love a good nerd. And then 0 for our lore skill. However, we do also get a familiar, and we can choose between 3 familiars. They are creatures that exist within the library. They are known as catacoons, glowmites, or tumblefluffs. And let me tell you about them, because they're so cute. I kind of want to take a glyph bat from our game of I'm sorry, did you say street magic? But I'm not going to bend the rules too much. Although, maybe I will. We'll see. So, catacoons are part lemur, part raccoon, all trouble. Love that already. I've had a monkey on this channel already with Dine, but we'll see. Glowmites are crab-like automatons with glowing gems that are often tasked with cleaning the library. And then tumblefluffs are library spirits. They're just little balls of dust and library debris that are about the size of your little finger, but multiple of them can merge into humanoid forms as big as your hand. That's kind of cute. I kind of like that one. if I'm not going to go with the glyph bat, I'm going to go with a tumblefluff, and I'm going to call it Dusty. Dusty is my tumblefluff familiar, and Dusty gives us an additional +1 to one of our skills. It adds +1 to the skill, and it can absorb 1 fatigue, but once it does, it no longer provides that skill bonus. We're going to say that Dusty is good at lore. We're going to make up for our weakness, our 0 in lore. Because who doesn't love a tumblefluff? Totally gonna de-escalate any situation we find ourselves in. Now we get to talk about the truths of our library here. We're going to choose one from each of 3 sections. There is our background, our community, and the library for this game. There are 3 choices for background, which is you were found at a library entrance as an infant, you discovered your way into the library and survived on your own in the stacks for a while, but the library can be dangerous, or you were born and raised in the library. I love the idea that Corbyn found his way in accidentally. So there's a question we have to ask based on that choice, which is, what did you barely escape during those first few days? Just to fill in a little bit of lore, I'm going to go with something from Volume 2, one of the other trifold pamphlets, and I'm going to say The Thing Below. I think I found my way in as Corbyn and was looking through stacks of books that did not make sense, was not in any kind of library or place that I was looking for anything, and a hole just opened up in the ground and started to swallow things, and it almost got Corbyn. But it didn't, and then it narrowly patched up the ground, and for some reason, wherever Corbyn found himself for a couple of days, it almost seemed to follow, but maybe that's just because his nerves were just through the roof, and he was very nervous. Our second truth is going to be our community. The 3 options here are, there are always 2, a librarian and an apprentice. You live with your librarian and rarely have visitors. The other is, you travel through the library with your family, the royal librarians of a lost kingdom. Ooh, I don't like that one. Too fancy. And the other is, you live in Periphery, an enclave at the perimeter of the burned section. Whoa. This says the people there try to keep gnosiphages from reaching the rest of the library. I kind of like the idea that people who find their way in and weren't brought in on purpose or raised here or anything like that are kind of made part of this community that's like, okay, well then you're the front lines. Like if you're going to stay here, you need to work here and you need to do this. And most of them eventually end up becoming apprentices or find a job or something within the library. So I love the idea that Corbyn was eventually found by librarians, asked if he wanted to stay or if he wanted to go home, and he said he wanted to stay, so they sent him to Periphery. And the question assigned with that one is, how can you tell when a gnosophage is near? Now I should probably tell you what a gnosophage is. Gnosiphages are also known as booklickers. They are withered husks of people from the burned section. They steal words and knowledge from documents by licking them. The content then appears on their skin like tattoos. I think all the humidity just goes out. And normally you don't want it to be too humid in a library to prevent any kind of damage to the books, but I think that it's almost like it's palpable. We have better senses than we realize as humans, but we rarely put them into practice. And it's something that the people of Periphery have gotten very good at recognizing. You can feel a change in the air around your skin when a gnosophage is near. Ooh, and I just love the idea that if they have to lick books, but they make everything around them just like a lot drier and arid, then when you hear them grab a book and lick it, it's like this sandpaper, like, I just shivered. All right, and our last truth is the library itself. The 3 options are, the library is a sentient place. A librarian knows how to communicate with it. The second is, each section of the library is a separate creature. A librarian is chosen by their section. Ooh, that's cool. Or, well, I just saw a word and I feel like it's gonna have to be this one. The library is an ecosystem. The librarians help keep it in balance. Ooh. Now I know what everyone's thinking. That's the one. He's going to do it. He's going to do it. I think I'm going to go with the first one. The library is a sentient place, and librarians learn how to communicate with it. Gonna play off type here a little bit, everybody. Yeah, I bet you didn't expect that one, huh? Alright, I'm gonna do that. The question associated with that truth is that the library whispered to Corbyn once. What did it say? Ooh, I like that. It's the reason that, despite having been placed in periphery and asked to protect the library against nosiphages, now Corbyn is an apprentice. Probably because the library whispered something to him and he had to tell a librarian because he had no idea what it meant. And we're going to do this a lot, but before we even start, I'm going to roll on one of the tables in the Librarian's Apprentice. What I love about the layout of this game too is for a game that uses D66 rolls, as they're known as, you roll 2d6 and consult it. One of the die will represent, the tens digit and the second will represent the singles digit normally. This is laid out so neatly where you have a table that just has 1 and then 1 through 6 next to it with a bunch of information. I'm going to roll on document formats and say that this is something that the library basically led Corbyn to as if it was going to be important. And we got a 1 and a 2, which says an announcement by, and then a 2 and a 6, which says a fire. Ooh, how biblical of Corbyn to be given a message by the library through fire, which is probably not all that common in the library. Maybe it is common in very specific places, but obviously fire is not something you want getting out or being out of control in a library. So, interesting. That is how the message was delivered by the library, which is sentient, and I guess what that message could have been was, ooh, the nosiphages are known as booklickers, but they're from the burned section. Maybe the library was trying to tell Corbyn something about the booklickers themselves through fire. Okay, and maybe that's what led a librarian to say, if the library wants you to look into this, then we need to find these particular documents. And they communicated with it to get an idea of where to go to lead Corbyn and test Corbyn to see if he can find what is necessary to get to the bottom of this cryptic message from the library. And with that, we are off. We have our inciting incident, our information from our truth, our history, our community, all of these things. The first thing we are going to do is we're going to flip one card, and it is going to be our starting location for the game. We're going to flip it right to the middle. The 3 of Spades. This represents the librarian's office that is sending us out on this mission to collect these 6 requested documents. We are going to flip cards now to travel and begin moving our way through the library. If the number of the card that we're going to place is higher than the one that we are currently in, we put it above it. Otherwise, we put it below it. And that's not in a stack. That's, creating this, if you will, map with cards on the table here of our library. All right, so we are going to roll our first action, and that is going to be to travel. So when we do this, we are going to flip 2 cards from the top of the deck, and we are going to then roll 2d6 plus navigation to see how we do in fighting our way through. Our 2 cards are a 6 and a 10. I will talk about the suits in a second. First, let's roll to see how we do. I rolled 2 3s plus our navigation skill, which is +1, gives us a 7, meaning this is a shadow result. With that, we can add either of the cards to the map, but we will discard the other. If we'd gotten a light result, we would have been able to trade in the other card as well, either getting us a resource or clearing some fatigue that we are going to eventually accrue as we, go through this library and come up against complications and obstacles. I'm going to go ahead and add the 10 of diamonds just because it's closer to a face card, which is when you add a face card to your map, that's a room in which a document that you need is going to be in. And now the loop begins in earnest. We are traveling to this new room, and when we do so, we are going to roll on the tables from the second volume, which is going to give us descriptions for the room and then the events we come up against here. So I'm just going to roll. I may not be doing this. I may edit a lot of this out, but we will get the description of the room, which is another 1 and a 2. Bone. The feature of this room is a 4 and a 1. Models, bone models. Okay, I can see what that's going to be. And then the category of this room is a 2 and a 3. Flying. Ooh, interesting. So I like the idea that this is kind of like an ornithological room full of specimens. Ooh, and we talked about this, not to bring in the one shot that we played of I'm Sorry Did You Say Street Magic, but the library does have these glyph bats, these glyph wing bats, and presumably maybe there are other flying creatures here. Maybe this is sort of a room where they are collecting the bones of the many, many small creatures that live in the library, especially these flying ones, to reassemble them and study them and learn of the adaptations that are making them better suited to live here in the library. Okay, so what's the event and or secret that we're going to find in this room? We roll another 2d6 and consult this table. Ooh, and that's a big one. That was a 5 and a 6. If ever we get doubles on this roll, that's where there are secrets that you will learn. With a 5 and a 6, I find a ring of keys on the floor that can be used to resolve a complication in the future. So I'm going to write down as a resource that I have a key ring. So that's cool, almost like a free success on a complication. And otherwise, I think that we see Corbyn go through this room. I think that maybe he's a little interested. I think that Dusty is kind of flitting around in here. I think that maybe Dusty goes into the recreated, bone displays of the little creatures that live in the library, and it's kind of just like playing around, and Corbyn looks and just says like, come on, you're just fine. You can fly on your own. You float around. You don't need to be inside of these. Come on. And we're just going to move on here as we move on to the next room. Let's flip 2 cards. Ooh, a 8 of diamonds and a king of hearts. So we have an opportunity here to add a card to this library, and it might be a room where we find our first resource, but we have to roll higher than an 8 on 2d6 plus navigation, which we don't. Oh no, I rolled 2 3s plus 1 again, and that is going to be a dark result. Now, a darkness on travel says add either card to the map, discard the other, but discover a complication at the new location. Oh, that's perfect. This is wonderful. So I can absolutely add the King of Hearts to our map here. I will discard the 8 of diamonds. I'm not getting any resources that way. And this will be our first opportunity to roll on the complications table. So here goes. Of course, there is a 6, but the 3 is the higher one. So I'm going to go with 3 6, a Keeper of the Forbidden. Ooh, okay. I wonder what that means. Next to it, it has a difficulty of 5 in brackets. So let's read address a complication. When you address a complication, you roll plus lore. But we do have that ring of keys that might be able to get us out of a complication. Oh, and the 5 isn't the number we have to roll over, it's how much value worth of cards we need to put onto that complications table to resolve it. Oh, okay, so I still have to flip 2 cards from the deck to roll against. Do I take that chance? Yeah, let's hold on to the keys. This is a Keeper of Forbidden Knowledge, so I don't think that a key ring is going to resolve anything. So let's flip 2 cards and see what we get. An ace and a 10. So the ace is worth 1, so we are going to at least get a shadow on this, but let's see if we can get over a 10. I got an 8 plus 1 for a 9, which means it is a shadow result, and I could only add 1 to the complication stack, which only fulfills 1 out of our 5 result, and the other is going to get discarded, and we're going to mark our first fatigue. Ooh, maybe I should have used that key ring. All right, well, we will try again. Basically, we need to keep doing this until we reach that 5 in difficulty. This is a 6 and an 8 on the next 2 flips. And we're going to get it with that one as we get a 4 and 4, so an 8 plus 1 on our lore to put both of those into this. And that will satisfy the difficulty of this check, this complication, to satisfy this Keeper of the Forbidden. So let's think about how this scene goes down. Rolling the descriptions of the room that this King of Hearts represents, I got dilapidated, stained glass, and in the category saved a life. I am confronted with a complication, which is a Keeper of the Forbidden. Now, I think what that means is, not only is this a test for Corbyn, who is looking for documents related to something to do with the booklickers, with the gnosiphages, those of the burned section. Obviously, this Keeper of the Forbidden is not going to give this information out to just anybody, but Corbyn is here as an official apprentice librarian, and he comes here and shares that he was sent on this mission to begin with. He was named an apprentice when the library spoke to him in a flame. The stained glass probably depicts great people of the library. This is a dilapidated place. This is a corner of the library that maybe, I don't want to say is forgotten, but is purposefully not somewhere that people come often, because it represents a place where those who've, I don't want to say sacrificed themselves for the greater good. The category saved a life makes me think that this person dedicated themselves to the inhabitants of the library. And maybe there is something here that the Keeper of the Forbidden isn't supposed to tell people about, which is maybe not the creation of gnosiphages, but the treatment or prevention of those. Maybe there is an early clue about those who become the husks of booklickers. So I think that the Keeper of the Forbidden is going to permit us to conduct research in this room to learn a little bit more. And I also think that we're going to have to roll to see what the document that we uncover looks like. So let's go ahead and roll conduct research. Plus research. Ooh, I rolled before I flipped cards, but that's a really good one. I got an 11, and I flipped a 7 and a 5, which means that we got our first light result on research. Listen, sometimes I do play to type, which is nerd. So when we succeed with a light result on a conduct research action, we get to trade in both cards. One of these cards is a spade, which gives us 1 resource. Just a freeform, open-ended narrative resource. The other is a diamond, which is going to reduce that fatigue that we took on doing this challenge. I think that finding this document and getting a little bit of context and information just totally revitalizes and re-energizes Corbyn. He gets very excited when he finds out what this information is. And there is a documents format, which we rolled on earlier, to how the library communicated to Corbyn, but let's see what this particular information that is found, this first document, looks like. A 3 and a 1, which says memories passed along by, that's awesome. A 2 and a 3, a garden. Oh my gosh, it's just like Bloomhold, it's just like what we talked about. Okay, interesting. In this dilapidated room of stained glass that honors those who've saved lives in the library, there is a small garden. Maybe it is something like Bloomhold. Maybe it comes from Bloomhold. Maybe a piece of these people is saved and planted alongside small like bonsai trees or something like that. And when Corbyn gets to explore it a little bit, he gets information about those who become gnosiphages. All right. We're already a half hour into this episode, and I've only gotten 1 of my 6 documents. Let's keep looking. And now we once again travel. So we're going to flip 2 cards, a 5 and a 9. Rolling plus navigation. Oh no. That is a 3 on the dice plus 1 for navigation, meaning we are going to get a darkness result on travel. Oof. Back to back. We are going to add either card to the map and discard the other, but another complication is at this new location. We'll add the 5 of diamonds, why not? And we find a complication here, which, depending on what I roll, I'm probably going to resolve with that ring of keys. Let's go ahead and see what the complication is. A 1 and a 6. So that is another Keeper of the Forbidden. Let's flip it real quick. We'll do 6 and 1, and it is a gnosiphages. Ooh, that's so good! Oh, we're on to them. And I think that as we continue to travel, this is what we are sent to gather documents about, and this is what the information we are seeking is going to lead toward information about, and we run right into a gnosophage, a booklicker. We can feel that palpable change in the air, in the pressure, in the heat, in the humidity, and Corbyn is used to it as a member of the community of Periphery. The hair on the back of his neck rises as he looks around, nervous about this gnosophage, but I think that he starts tracking it. It's looking for a very specific book, and I think that it is making its way towards maybe a case of books that are kept behind glass case that can be closed or what have you, and it's making its way towards it. And I think that Corbyn, thinking quickly, grabs those keys and rushes forward and just finds a lock and locks this case so the gnosophage can't get into it. And this is not a game about violence, this is a game about information and an infinite library, so I don't think that this gnosophage is going to lash out or anything like that, but I do think that Corbyn has upset it, and I believe that Corbyn kind of just rattles the keys in his hand and says, like, if you want him, you're gonna have to catch me, and he runs off through the library. Eventually, I think the gnosophage is closing in on Corbyn, and he just tosses the keys down a stairwell, not knowing where it's gonna go, but it's gonna buy a little bit of time for him to get away from this gnosophage and him to tell a librarian that a gnosophage was after the books in this case. Maybe they can move them. Maybe not the most responsible thing to do, but Corbyn kind of panicked there. And now those keys very well may become something that someone else stumbles on down on another floor of the library. All right, let's continue traveling. Ooh, we have 2 face cards, a jack and a king, so no matter what, we're getting our second document, and almost assuredly, we are going to fail this roll with navigation, but let's see. Ooh, maybe not. It's a 5 and a 4, plus our plus 1 of navigation is only a 10 versus 2 11s on the face cards, so that is yet another darkness result on traveling through the library. Corbyn's good at traveling, it's just, oh well. And just to switch it up, we will add the jack here to the infinite library that we are going through, and we're going to have to come up with a complication. First, let's see what the room looks like. We're going to roll on the descriptions. Wow, I'm rolling a lot of the same results. I might swap these dice out. That is a 1 and a 3 for burned. Oh, that's appropriate. This room is burned. A 3 and a 4 says that it is invisible walls. Oh, interesting. And then a 6 and a 4 says it is too small to see. That is the category. Oh, this is really interesting. And oh my goodness, I just realized how many rooms have I forgotten to roll events and secrets. I think I only did it that one time. Oh my goodness. Rene rules, There's a lot of things going on in this room in particular. Let's roll events and secrets. A 4 and a 5. That's going to be the furnishings are smashed and torn. The damage is recent. I think that they're burned is what they are. And the smoke makes it even more difficult. The smoldering of it all, the invisible walls, everything in here, the category is too small to see. So I think that it's very difficult to make out anything in this room right now. Clearly, a gnosophage has been through here. So, what is our complication? We're going to roll. Oh no, that's a big roll. That is a 6 and a 5 on our complication. That's going to be a big number. A swarm of hungry books. That is going to be 8 for the challenge, the difficulty for this complication. Oh boy. Well, it makes sense. If a lot of things are getting burned in this room and a booklicker is on the loose, these books are going to be angry, and maybe they have awakened themselves to defend themselves. Let's flip to see a 4 and a 3. Okay, so it should be doable. We can beat this with even our paltry +1 lore to resolve a complication. Oh, absolutely. We get a 6 + 1 for a 7. And we get to add both of those cards to overcoming this complication, but 7 on those 2 cards is not enough to overcome it, so we're going to have to do it again to hopefully overcome it, and here is where we run into problems. A 10 and a king. This is going to be difficult. We're going to have to roll absolute rocks here to overcome this part, and that is not how we do it with 2 1s. So on a darkness roll for complication, discard both cards, mark a fatigue. We are struggling. We're running into these invisible walls. We can't find our way to where we need to be. At first it seemed easy because the smoke actually showed us a little bit, but now we need to get to a very specific spot and we don't have the time to figure out this labyrinth of a room here as things are burning and books are swarming, and they seem to be able to either go through the walls or maybe above them, and Corbyn and Dusty just cannot figure out how to get through here. All right, here goes. We're going to flip the next 2 cards. Okay, we have a 2 and a queen. We should be able to do that. We do. We only get a shadow, though. We're not going to roll a 12, of course, with our +1 on lore. We've yet to roll that high like at all. So on a shadow roll, on address a complication, it says add either card to the complication stack, discard the other. We'll add the queen just for fun, but we do take another fatigue as it takes a long time getting us through this room, and that marks 2 of our 4 fatigue tracks just in overcoming this complication in this room. But it is also a face card room, which means that at the end, Corbyn manages to tamp out any of the other fires that may be smoldering around in this room, which appeases the books that fly back up and go back on their shelves, except for maybe one who maybe took a little bit of damage. Maybe it was one of the books that was licked. Regardless, we are going to find our second document, and that is going to come in the form of, and I'm going to roll on those document formats again. Ooh, 3 and 3. Says sparks from, that is appropriate, 4 and 3, a skull. Ooh. Sparks from a skull. I kind of like the idea that maybe the skull is embedded into the book itself, right? And this was a book that, try as it might, as it flew around defending this room and all of these things, maybe the sparks were from some of these fires that were recently started in this room, some of the burning, and as it's trying to flap its way and do all this stuff, I think that a few of the sparks may be a small ember just kind of burns its way up very slightly up the front cover of this book, and it hits this skull, which just, it's a different kind of material, and sparks shoot out from it. And in those sparks, there are strange, familiar markings that Corbyn recognizes not as letters, not as anything else, but maybe they are shapes, they are places, they are directions through the library. Corbyn puts the fire out, like kind of takes care of this book as well as he can, places it back on a shelf, says thank you, and starts to know where it is he needs to go. All right, we're going to be better about the events and secrets here, as Corbyn is 2 out of 6 documents down, but we have 2 fatigue and we have 1 resource to our name. In order to clear any fatigue, we need at least 3 resources. So let's keep moving and hope we don't have too many more complications. A jack and an ace is our next travel roll. Oh boy. Okay, let's see if we can get this. Now, I can spend a resource to get +1 to a roll, but I want those resources because if I ever get to 5 by some miracle, then I can actually just use it to freely get another document that I've been looking for. So that is a 6 +1 for a 7. That is a shadow roll. So I'm going to put the jack down, obviously, and that is going to be a second area with a document that we are looking for, bringing us up to 3 out of 6 documents. And it's because of the sparks in this skull, we knew exactly where to go. The other card, the Ace of Diamonds, gets discarded, unfortunately, and we can move into this room. There is no complication when we travel this way because we didn't get darkness. We're just getting too used to being bad at traveling. So we're going to roll that 2d6 for events and secrets. But first, let's get the description of the room. Ooh, 5-6. It is pristine in this room. 2-6. It's got glowing crystals. Oh, I like this room already. And then 6-6. Oh, if only I saved that for events and secrets. It was written by undead. Ooh, are the gnosiphages undead? They are husks. Moving about, they were clearly once humans from the burned sections of the library. Ooh, this is interesting. All right, and what's the event and secret? 2-3. This is a forbidden section for librarians only. Ooh, they can communicate with the library. It is safe for them to come in here. The library protects this place because what is in this room was written by the undead, presumably maybe by the gnosiphages. Ooh, this room is awesome, but does Corbyn think I can enter here? I am here on a specific mission from a librarian. This is part of my apprenticeship. I must find this document. I think so. I think that despite the warnings, despite knowing that this is a forbidden section, he has to go in here. The sparks from the room above led him here. He is on a mission to recover these specific documents. We've yet to uncover a secret, but we are getting very close. Let's go ahead and roll the document format that this pristine, glowing crystals room provides for us. Ooh, oh, pristine, glowing crystals written by the undead, and the bodies of the gnosiphages are just husks? What is in these glowing crystals? Is it the humanity they lost from the fires that burned them in the burned sections? Ooh, that's dark. That's dark stuff. Let's see. 2 and 5 for our document formats says there is hidden text on 6 and 5. The room itself. Ooh, okay. Hidden text on the room itself. Maybe it's not a language like a written language. The hidden message is in the order in which these glowing crystals pulse. It's not something that anyone can learn as a language. In fact, it's almost like you need to be in a state of mind receptive enough to receive the message. You might come in here on any given day. Librarians can come in here and the pulsing of these crystals means nothing to them. Maybe some of them have gotten pretty good at it, but I also think that the reason this is a forbidden room is because the messages that are usually relayed are not for the faint of heart. They are usually pretty momentous. They are usually almost portentous, if you will. Like they portend great things, or they carry great weight. And despite the warnings, Corbyn does find his way into this room looking for a document, but instead that document is just a hidden message, which is, maybe it has something to do with the fact that after a booklicker steals words and information from a book in the library and it appears as tattoos on its desiccated husk of a body, maybe it has something to do with the conventional thought is that that information is lost. Technically, it's not. It is just now on one of these gnosiphages. What if there was a way to still get that information when you need it? And what if that information is what's being communicated by these crystals? Because they are. Maybe they were once a part of those same bodies that are now going about licking books to put tattoos all over their bodies so they can communicate here with the librarians through the library. Well, we're halfway there. We need to know more. So we need to continue exploring and navigating. Let us explore some more. A 7 and a 9. Oh my goodness. Well, I rolled a 8 on my dice, so that is only a shadow. We are going to put either of these cards down, but the other gets discarded. We're never getting those resources. We'll put the 7 of hearts down, discard the 9, and see what this room has for us. 5 and 2 for the description of the room. It is a narrow room that we head out of here. Then 1-6 says, oh, it's an elevator. That makes sense. Interesting, an elevator here that the category is cookbooks. It takes us to cookbooks. And I love the idea that this elevator that Corbyn gets in, he knows that he needs to get out of this forbidden section. He gets into the elevator, but there's almost no buttons. Like, he didn't click cookbooks as a section. He just clicked up. And the elevator takes you where it wants to take you in this library. So what does the cookbook section have for us? That is a 3 and a 5 for the events and secrets, which says, this room is a parasite impersonating the library. Oh no, not to get too like current events and how I dislike parts of the state of the world, but it's almost like all of those AI recipes that you see social media just pumping out at you, and it's just like, nobody made this recipe up. It just scoured the internet and was like, everybody puts these ingredients together. Here's like a totally believable recipe for this thing, and it's just an AI generated image of this thing, and this should work on paper. Oh, that's exactly what this is doing. Oh, and cookbooks. Oh, it makes sense. It's literally just grabbing ingredients, quote unquote, from around the library and pumping it out to people in this room. Oh, what a terrible room this is. Ew. This room is the AI. This room is the AI version of the library. We must take this room down. You know what? Just put all the gnosiphages in here. Let them lick all these books. Let them lick them all. All right. Ew, gross. Well, okay, but is there information that we could presumably get in this room? Could we conduct research in this room? It is a parasite. And I think that Corbyn realizes that, or maybe he doesn't. Let's go ahead. Maybe that's what this research is. Corbyn knows there's something off about this room. Ooh, a 2 and a 4. We can totally do this with our research. Nailed it. Absolutely. We get both of these cards. We can trade them both in immediately. We're going to get one more resource from the spades that we got there. So we're up to 2 resources. And then the other is a heart. So we're going to remove one of our fatigue, because this upsets Corbyn that a room like this even exists. And he realizes what it is. And he knows he's going to have to tell librarians about this parasite. They're going to have to remove it. They're going to have to do something. But at the same time, there's information he can glean from this room, which is, it is pulling ingredients from throughout the library. So what is an ingredient that he can trace back to its source? And that is where we're going to travel to. Flipping 2 cards. We get a 6 and a 7. So again, not a room that we're going to find a document in, but we have to make our way there. Finally, a huge roll. That is a light result, adding one of these cards to our map, and the other we get to trade in. I'm going to trade in the 7 for a 3rd resource, which will allow us to remove fatigue when we can rest, but I think that instead I'm going for those 5 resources to trade it in for a document. And this room, the description of which is, oh, I did it again. I should have rolled events and secrets. You know what? I'm going to do events and secrets because I rolled doubles. No, I'm not going to do it. It's got to happen naturally. 5 and 5 says this room is primitive, that we trace the ingredients back to. A 6 and a 1. Ooh, we got this before. This is stained glass. So what if we go, we're going to switch that up and make that the category, which is survival guides in a primitive room. That makes sense. And then the last one is going to be 2 and 6, which says, so the feature instead will be, ooh, we got this too, glowing crystals. Let's switch that one up and make it stairs. Ooh, survival guide in a primitive room of stairs. Maybe these are naturally occurring stairs made out of stone and root and things like that. It is the opposite of the elevator, right? Like we left the room into the parasitic cookbooks room and we need to get out of here. It has purged itself almost, like a tumor growing on an organ, right? It was outside of this organ, but we were brought here by an elevator. So instead, now we're going down the natural version of it. We're going down these natural stairs, and it is all about survival within the library. A very, very useful place. Rolling events and secrets, we get 4-6, which says, a cluster of library spirits merge to form a figure the size of your palm. It cautiously examines each thing you touch. Ooh, I think we need to call in Dusty on this one. They cluster and form. This is another Tumblefluff-like creature, and I think that we're heading down these stairs, and some of the things we touch are just for balance, and that's when we realize this thing forms and starts following us. It's almost like, is it observing what we're touching, or is it trying to guide us to touch certain things? Sounds like we're doing research. And I rolled before I flipped, but that is going to be a success no matter what, because I got 2 5s on that. So let's flip the next 2 cards, a 2 and a 5. So conducting research, another light result on this action, meaning we trade in both of these cards. This gives you a chance to find resources and clear fatigue and get clues. They're guiding us towards something. We get to trade in both of these cards. It is a 2 and a 5, so we're going to get 1 more resource, and we're going to clear our last fatigue, as I think maybe Dusty is the one to kind of communicate with these other Tumblefluffs. Maybe Dusty even melds in with it. Ooh, I like that. It forms this palm-sized person that is investigating everything, and I ask Dusty to hold its hand, or Dusty, find out where it wants us to go, and Dusty merges into it and holds its hand out and leads to basically, oh, you know what? This is a staircase, primitive survival guides. I think that there is almost a place to get fresh water, a small little pool where water is trickling down these natural stairs and pools in a nice clear concave place in this rock. And it's a place to splash Corbyn's face and get a drink of water, which rejuvenates him, removing a fatigue. It shows us a door out of here. Where does that door go? Let's flip 2 cards and find out. An ace and a jack. Another jack. That's a 3rd jack. Let's see if we can get that big result. Well, it will be a shadow, which means that we are going to discard the ace, but we will get another document, bringing us to 4 out of 6 of the documents we need. We are very close to getting another resource, which will bring us 5. We're very close to finding all of these documents. With a shadow roll on travel, we just discard, no complication. Let's go ahead and roll to see what this other document room looks like. Led by other spirits of the library, other Tumblefluffs, we get a 6 and a 1. This room is shifting. Makes sense from the place that we just came from. Then we get a 4 and a 1, full of models, which I think might have been the first one we ever got, but then the last thing, what section, what category is it in? 6 and 2, things that are lucky. I would count Corbyn in that category after the Tumblefluffs just guided us out of this survival guides staircase from this parasitic room. So Corbyn is also lucky. Let's see what events and secrets await us in this room. 5 and 2. A swarm of glow mites scuttles along cleaning. Okay. And what is the document format that we are going to discover in here for our document about these gnosiphages? 2 1s. A single line on 6 and 3. Leaves. Oh, interesting. We are leaving a natural staircase full of survival guides. These glow mites are cleaning a room. And I think that this room is, what did we say this was? It was shifting. So it's very hard for these glow mites to keep up cleaning this room because it is constantly shifting. Ooh, the models in this room too, I think are moving around. I think that, you know what? This might be a room where things that are very lucky. It's almost like It's almost like, have you ever seen somebody who built such an elaborate contraption, or like a wind-up kind of thing where everything is moving, and if it wasn't perfectly engineered, that everything would dodge everything else. It just looks like everything would get in everything else's way. It's almost like it's so perfectly engineered that it should not be so clean because it's so complicated. That is what this room looks like. And when Corbyn enters from the natural staircase of this survival guide, maybe pushing vines and moving branches and things like that, undergrowth, to enter this room, a bunch of leaves maybe fall off, or maybe they get caught in the machinery of things moving around and they kind of get thrown around, which is why those glow mites immediately come out to clean it, because otherwise we will ruin this perfect engineered room here. But one of the things that falls is a single leaf, and as a glow mite goes to get it, I think that Dusty tugs at Corbyn's sleeve or something and says, grab it. And when Corbyn does grab it, there's one line on it. Continuing our metaphor here that these burned husks of booklickers, a.k.a. gnosiphages, are the corporeal bodies of people, inhabitants of the library, and maybe those glowing gems in that room that we were in earlier, that forbidden room for librarians only. Maybe they're not fully gone from this library. The information lives on, just in a different form. Maybe this leaf tells us that a tree can shed its leaves, but the organism lives on, and more leaves will come next spring. What does that mean for gnosiphages and husks? We're not sure. We only have 4 out of our 6 documents. This is getting interesting. I don't think that Corbyn can get through this room. You know what? Let's use our first of the oracle rolls, the ask a question one here, where it says, when you want the answer to a yes-no question not covered by other actions, roll +2 if the answer is likely yes, +0 if unlikely, or +1 if unsure. So I think it's going to be very difficult for Corbyn to figure out the timing of getting through this room. So let's see if we think it's possible. We're going to flip. Okay, we get a 6 and a 3, so it's possible, and we're rolling +0. I think it's unlikely. Oh, and we rolled a 5. So we got a shadow. The answer is yes, but. So he can get through here, but it's not pretty. I think that it's actually quite comical to watch him try and almost dance through this room and find a way through every opening and time everything perfectly. And he kind of gets whacked around a few times, but eventually he does make it to the other side of this contraption. And I think the glow mites kind of scuttle towards him, and he almost falls out the other side. The other side being, let's travel and get an ace and a 10. Ooh, this is going to be a tough one to get a full light success on. But we do it with a 6 and a 5, so that is a light, and both of those are black cards, an ace and a 10 of spades, which means that on travel, we can add either card to the map and trade in the other. For our 5th resource, we'll put the ace down, and we will get our 5th resource, and you know what, I'm going to immediately use it to spend, and it says here in the book, you can spend 5 resources at any time to find a document you are seeking. Select a face card from the deck or discard pile and add it to the map as a new area. I think I'm just going to replace this ace with it. Actually, I think we fall right into a room. In our Discord, we have the Queen of Clubs, so we'll just put that one in here. And this is a room where we are going to find one of our documents, literally fall right into it from a room, which very appropriately enough was a things that are lucky. You know, if we decided not to try and go through this complex dance and mechanism, we probably wouldn't have gotten lucky, but we got lucky because we tested ourselves, we went for it. That is the point of the Librarian's Apprentice, is to challenge yourself to navigate this library, and despite it being kind of a funny dance, we literally get knocked out of this room, fall out of this room thanks to these glow mites and everything, and fall right into one of the documents we need. The description of the room we fall into is 4 and 1. Ooh, it's hidden. Perfect. It's a hidden room. How lucky of us. We get a 6 and a 4. Ooh, the feature is teeth. I don't like that at all. And then the category of the room is 3-1, which says libraries. Teeth. What? Teeth? Dan. What are we going to do with teeth here? That's interesting. Okay. We find a hidden room. The category is libraries themselves. Ooh, this is almost like a meta room. Interesting. The library itself is a sentient thing. It is infinite. I love the idea that maybe it's not the only one. And this is very hidden knowledge, that there are other libraries out there. Can one transfer between libraries? Do libraries have different information? That's interesting. Well, let's roll on events and secrets here. We get a 4 and a 6. Ooh, we got that one before, so we're gonna flip it and do 6 and 4, which says, something is slowly tunneling along under the floor. Something large. And that triggers some memories in Corbyn of his first few days after sneaking into the library. Not sneaking in, inadvertently finding his way into the library. And the thing that lurks below almost got him multiple times. And he feels it in this hidden room. It's lurking. It's close. But it doesn't open up the floor. And as the panic comes and goes and the quiet returns to this room, Corbyn opens his eyes. And I think right there, right in front of Corbyn, is the document. Let's see what it is. 5 and 6. It's perfect. The temperature of, okay, 3 and 3, which I think we got last time. A poem. Ooh, the temperature of a poem? What an interesting combination of words. We said that the way the people of Periphery know a gnosophage is near is a palpable change in pressure, in humidity, in temperature, as the burned. He opens his eyes after not even realizing he closed them in almost a, I'm not going to panic of the thing below. And when he opens them, the temperature of the room, if it can be described as to dance, imagine running your hand along something that changes texture a few times over the course of a certain distance. And you can feel smooth, rough, very rough, wet, sticky. It changes. If the same could be said for temperature, moving across Corbyn's body, and the message, there's almost, you can feel it. The way that it's changing is telling a story, is reading a poem to Corbyn. It's like seasonal, but then it gets very hot. And then it's emptiness and dry, like the feeling of the husk of a booklicker. What does that mean? We have one more document to find, to potentially find out. Corbyn has opened his eyes and felt this in this hidden room about libraries themselves. Ooh, the temperature of a poem too. If libraries exist and there are multiple of them, is it almost like people? The feeling of someone's hand in yours when their hand is warmer, or if their hand is freezing and trying to warm them up, or pushing their body against you, or any of that. The temperature of a poem is such a fun combination of words. I'm going to be thinking about that one for a while. But after that feeling, there's nothing else in this room for Corbyn to really figure out. So he travels. And our very next room, the door opens from this hidden room. Corbyn, unsure of where he is. And we get a 4 and a queen. So there is a chance. Well, there's definitely a chance we're going to get our last document here. The library has delivered Corbyn directly to where he needs to go to have all the pieces of this puzzle. Let's see if we can roll high enough. That is an 8 plus 1 on navigation for a 9. So we will not, it's going to be a shadow. We're going to have to discard our 4, but we can put down our queen. And you know how I made this map? It just so happens the place I just put this card is directly below the 3 of spades where we started this adventure in the library. We've come full circle, and let's see what this last room has for us. The description is 5-2. We've had narrow, so let's do 2-5. It is an elegant room. 3-5. There's a locked safe in this room. How perfect is this? And 3-5 again for the category says missing vital information. That's crazy how those dice just rolled. I'm going to ask the Oracle before I roll events and secrets here. Is this the room that I dropped the key ring down? I think that it's unlikely, so we're going to roll +0. We're going to flip 2 cards, a 9 and a queen. It's going to have to be an absolutely insane roll. I got an 8. So that is a no. We don't have keys to this safe that's in the middle of this room. It says no and on darkness. No, this is not the room we dropped the keys into, and let's see what the events and secrets say. We'll complicate it that way. 3 and 3, we got our first secret. Oh my goodness. We got our first secret on a 3 and 3. Oh my goodness. It couldn't be more perfect. That is so wild. The last room of this exploration of the Infinite Library. 3 and 3 on events and secrets says the script worm trades knowledge for sacrifices. The required sacrifice is different each time. Oh my goodness. What if the last document we need, there's a locked safe here? I'm not saying it is the script worm. This is missing vital information. That is what the booklickers do. They lick books and take information. And the script worm requires a sacrifice. But that information is never really gone. Either the script worm still knows it, or it's somewhere else, like on the husk of a booklicker of a gnosophage in the form of a tattoo. The books may be no longer there, but somewhere there is still that information. It's almost like energy cannot be created or destroyed. That's what information is in this library. The information of the Infinite Library is the energy, is the matter, is everything here. I think the final document that we receive, we don't even need to open that locked chest. Corbyn now knows. The community of Periphery protects against the gnosiphages because it's not that the library wants this information to be kept in one form or another. It's more just that it needs to be in moderation. It's almost like, oh gosh, I said that the library is a sentient thing in our truths, but it also works like an ecosystem because I'm gonna do it, guys. It's almost like the body of a person. We just found that meta room of libraries, and there are more, and maybe they are different. It's like humans. We share so much of the same DNA. We are all so much closer to being identical than we are to being different on a genomic, universal, life kind of scale. The Infinite Library almost functions like a body, and the people of Periphery and the librarians and everything are defending the body against bacteria and viruses and nosiphages and creatures and that which lurks below and all of these things, but it doesn't mean that you can't survive with those things in you. Your body knows what viruses look like. Your body knows what bacteria look like. You always have those bacteria in your body. Your body fights them to the point where they don't do enough damage to matter. You'll never be free of them. And it's important that you experience them, so you build that immunity. And I think that Corbyn is going to bring this back to the librarian with an understanding that nosiphages aren't the enemy. They're just a different thing within the Infinite Library that has its role to play. Maybe one day, when Corbyn becomes a librarian in his own right, his thesis, his research, his life's mission will be navigating or negotiating or trading information with the gnosiphages in a way that no other librarian before him has. Oh, Dan, bravo. This game is so good. I hope all of you out there listening now want to explore this infinite library on your own. It is one of the best tropes. I don't even want to call it a trope. It is just one of the best at an infinite library to any of your games and to all of your games. It is always such a interesting exploration of ideas, and every player, every table, every person is going to think of theirs differently, but the allure of, and the, I don't want to say fear, but like in a way, like something so immense as an infinite library, you know, as somebody who owns over 1,000 physical books myself, and that's not even including TTRPGs, don't even get me started. Will I read all of these books in my lifetime? I hope so, but I'm going to keep adding to that pile too. Like, there is an allure to needing to experience and learn as much as you can and develop empathy and understanding of the world around you and peoples that you may never interact with, but they've had entirely different experiences of you. As Matt Risby, aka The Bad Spot, said in his Perspective Checks interview, nothing you've ever learned is lost or useless to you. You can use it to form new opinions, to learn new things, and it may come in very handy down the line in a way you never expected. So never stop learning, and a game set in an infinite library, it works. It's so perfect. Please go check out The Librarian's Apprentice. Go listen to Dan. He has a great podcast with his daughter and his niece where they play TTRPGs and learn them together, called Almost Bedtime Theater. Yeah, I can't say enough good things, and The Temperature of a Poem is going to stick with me for a long time for just a strange combination of words that I really, really like. All right, well, I hope that you go explore the Infinite Library soon. If you like what I'm doing here, find me on the social medias, email me at rainyplaysgamespod@gmail.com, rate and review if you haven't already so more nerds find this podcast and we can all be more nerdy together. If you want to be nerdy together and talk more, you can always join the DMs After Dark Discord, which will be linked in the podcast description as well. We talk about everything, lots of nerd stuff over there. If you feel absurdly generous, I have a Ko-fi page that just helps cover podcast hosting and video software and all that stuff for mostly transcriptions for audio. That's it. Go pick out a book. Tell me what's in your infinite library. You know what? Message me. Tell me what you're reading. I'll add it to my infinite list.